All right, let's go and zoom in so we can see these letters a bit better. Okay. All right. All right, I think I'm good. I think I am good now. Hopefully you can hear me. Let's see. Okay. All right. I should be pretty ready. But I'll give it a couple more minutes to let anybody else come through before I start. But we ended off last chapter with Arthur. Well, no, that wasn't the last chapter. It was a chapter before that. Cecilia, the bull crap with Cecilia had happened, and it seems like a grown knows what they were doing when they was kind of sneaking in with the room with the table and stuff. So the whole thing folded up on them, and she had to use her power to kind of like delay it or stop it from doing the trap that had got submitted or whatever. And then the shit that Agrona had said, it was like, oh, what he said something about. Let me go back. Let me go back really quick and see what he said. He said something about how, oh, it'd be a shame for your whole love story or whatever for it not to happen or not to be completed at the end of it. Let me see. As change wind blows, everything is aligning as it should be. Our enemy will soon be divided. The God spell in our power, which I think the God spell in our power, I just think that means they're talking about Arthur, like either being in his control or something along those lines. I think like maybe he got something to try to control Arthur. And then it says, and I have even invented a purpose or a proper use for all those little rebel bloods who followed Sarah's and her futile efforts. So I think he's just talking about the people who are in what Ellenwire, the waste, Ellenwire waste, I think is what they call it now. And so we know what happened with the wraiths and what's her name? Perfetta or some shit like that. What she had said. She was like, oh yeah, whenever he calls upon you, be ready, whatever the fuck. But then he also said, and you two will be in your rightful place at the center of it all, earning the fairy tale happy ending you both have worked so hard for. You need only do as you are told. Fulfill my vision. It would be a shame if you failed me now with our goal so close. So yeah, so that's what he's talking about. He's just saying that, oh, kind of like, I know what you guys been doing, but it'll be a shame if you guys end up dead before you can fulfill, his vision and earn that happy fairy tale ending. So so things are ramping up, man. Things are ramping up. What's up, Micah? And what's up, Michael? Michael and Micah, they're both here. But it's probably somebody else here. But you haven't said what's up in the comments, so I don't know. I don't know who's here. But yeah, so things are ramping up. But I'm really hoping that we get some Arthur, get some because remember he used his new God rune. He used his new rune like super quick, and then he like briefly used it, and then he stopped, and he was like, "I gotta go, I gotta get out of here." And so I'm wondering if we're gonna get his whole thought process of like, what happened, what he experienced, like, because okay, so let me talk about this first before I get into the chapter, right? Because chapter's gonna be here. We ain't but the it's not a big rush. I wanted to get this video up before the playoff games start at 4:30. But so I'm assuming that this new um that this new God rune that he got, I'm assuming that it's going to be spatium based because we know that the first God rune that he got from one of the keystones was the Aurora's Requiem. That was the first one he got back when he was in the mirror room and everything that happened there. And then after that, he ended up getting was it Remhart? No, Remhart was third. Am I crazy? Am I forgetting one? He got he's got Godspell. Godspell wasn't from the Keystone. He's got Realm Heart. He's got Aurora's Requiem, and he's got shit. Am I forgetting one? because he should have three. Yeah, yeah. So those are so yeah. I'm confused. I'm thinking he has more than he has. So the first one he had got was Aurora's Requiem. The second one he had got was Realm Heart, and so this is the third. So we know that Aurora's Requiem is a Avum based technique. We know that Realm Heart is a Vivum based technique. And so the only third one that makes logical sense would be a spatium based technique, for what he got from the keystones itself. Because we're not going to include anything that he learned on his own, right? Because destruction he learned on his own, and God step he learned on his own. So we're not going to include those. So that's why I'm thinking that what's up, Lebo? But that's why I'm thinking that this one's going to be a Vivim based tech or a spatium based technique. So I'm just wondering how powerful it's going to be because of the fact that he's saying that like he talked about it like his mind kind of like lit up like his pathways or some shit like that and his mind kind of lit up like maybe he get more clarity, maybe he has like more comprehension, more understanding, so where maybe now when he used realm heart where he used the new god room with his other god rules, maybe he has like he can do more stuff with it because he has a better understanding or it gives him enlightenment or something like that. So, something with his brain that it does, right? So maybe he can use like a shit ton of swords where he can have like 1,000 swords and manipulate them like easily because of the new god rune he got. Like I don't know. I don't know. But I definitely think it's gonna be some sort of power up. But but anyway, it's probably a strategy based thing. Yeah, yeah, like something that's gonna give him more enlightenment is what I'm thinking. Like it's gonna be okay. So this chapter is not without cost. Okay, not without cost. But yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's gonna be some sort of like improving his logical thinking skills or just understanding or comprehension or something like that. But anyway, said it was a dope chapter, fun chapter. So I'm excited. I'm excited about this one. All right, so not without cost. Let's just get into it. Okay. Arthur Lewin. Okay, so we got Arthur. We ain't going to no Cecilia. We ain't going to other bullshit with Nico. We got Arthur. That's what I'm ready for. All right, thick blades of deep green grass bent under my steps as I walked beneath the charwood trees outside of the hearth. I wonder, is it pronounced the hearth or is it pronounced the hearth? Because think about it. Earth is EARTH, earth, but then you put an H at the front of it. Wouldn't it be hearth? Like I'm thinking it'd be hearth, but the English language is fucking stupid, so it could be something else. But anyway, my thoughts were heavy and grounded, keeping me heavy and grounded, keeping me grounded as well. A mental shroud separated me from Regis and Sylvie. I wasn't ready to have anyone else's thoughts in my head just yet. Okay, so he's keeping them out because he wants to still process everything that's happened. Okay. Needing some time to digest everything that has happened, which is exactly what I said. Okay. Everything I had learned from both Kez's. Oh, so he's still processing what he learned from Kez's too. Probably about the history and everything that happened with them, how they kind of like evolved and shit. From both Kez's and Mordain. Cycled through my head again and again. There were too many what is it? Is that desperate? No, that's not separate. Yeah, the separate paths. Let me double check and make sure. Cause I want to know some of these words, bruh. Oh shit, I got the volume down. Essentially different. Okay, okay. Essentially different in kind, but not to be compared to. Okay. Anyway, and I was lacking too much information. Leaves rustled in a low branch, and a fuzzy creature that could have fit in the palm of my hand shuffled along the underside, clinging to the bark and sharp claws, or clinging to the bark with sharp claws. Its moon silver eyes inspected me without fear. Despite its cute appearance, something of a cross between a flying squirrel, a lemur, and a bat. What the fuck? A flying squirrel, a lemur, and a bat. I could sense the condensed mana in his body, enough to classify it as an A class mana beast. After sniffing around for a moment, the mana so it's a cute squirrel like mana beast, and he's classified as an A. So that thing must like transform and do some crazy shit if it's an A class mana beast. Which we don't even know. Like Arthur haven't even faced off against any of like the even higher class mana beasts because we know the Elderwood Guardian was like an S class mana beast. And so but aren't there like SSS class mana beasts and shit? Like mana beasts they haven't even discovered yet? It's crazy. So much. They said they said that most of the beast glades they haven't even explored to begin with. So there's still a whole lot about the beast glades that we don't even know about. We got a little tip from with Mordain and the Hearth and shit. With the crazy strong beast that was there. But anyway, where was I at? Um, After sniffing around for a moment, the man beast vanished back up a tree, drawing my eyes along the wide trunk of the towering charwood. If only our responsibilities were proportional to our size, then I could leave it all. Then I could leave all this to you, couldn't I? I said aloud. The words mostly nonsense spit out by my overtaxed brain. I watched idly as the scuttling creature made its way around the tree, dislodging a leaf several feet above me. As the bright leaf fluttered down like the burning ash of a bonfire, I imbued ether into my new god room. Okay. A soft warmth radiated from my spine, keeping me grounded as I felt. Let me also say this too. Let me also say this too, really quick. Now, we know that our boy Arthur can fly now, or at least he's learning how to fly. We know that he has capability to fly, but it has to do with his new insight that he has the ability to fly. I don't think him being able to fly has anything to do with his actual new God rune itself because he didn't have the God rune activated when he was floating. Remember, he was just floating and he just finished, gaining the insight from the keystone, but he never activated the God rune itself. So he had to learn how to fly from just his insight from solving the keystone. So I just want to put that out there because I don't think the keystone or the God rune itself is going to give him the ability to fly. I think he already knows how to fly because of his new insight. And they said it was the ether, the atmospheric ether that was like pushing against him against gravity. So it must be some new understanding that he's got with the ether. He can use it to, push off against and shit. So anyway, so yeah, he's using his God rune. Okay, so he uh he imbued ether into his new God room. Soft warmth radiated from my spine, keeping me grounded as I felt my cognitive abilities speed up several times over. That's crazy. So his cognitive abilities speed up several times over. The information I'd received and problems I had to solve were laid out like a deck of bruh. That is so dope. So now he can even process. So this motherfucker can be like grand wizard strategist. Like he was already a fucking genius to begin with. Now he's able to process information so much faster, and he can just like he said, it's laid out like a deck of cards. So he's basically playing solitaire with the entire world as like the cards and like okay, Agronis is this, Kez is this. I just need to do this and do this and do this, and then I'm vulnerable if I go to the fourth keystone, so I need to do this and do this and do this, and that's going to protect me, man. Let's see what he actually figures out because this is kind of crazy. So so the information I received and the problems I had to solve uh were laid out like a deck of cards, clearing my consciousness even as my mind split into several threads of thought at once. Chul had faced off against Cecilia. Okay, right? Nearly paying for that encounter with his life. But he didn't. He faced off against the race. He didn't fight Cecilia. But I have been able to heal him. Not only that, the Mourning Pearl, he wouldn't just recover, but his underpowered core will likely become stronger than before. So he'll probably be able to use his his Phoenix powers and stuff a lot better and a lot more efficiently because he runs out of mana really quickly. So now his core is gonna be strengthened, so he probably wouldn't run out of mana so fast. So he'd be more efficient with his core. Meyer Indrath might be the last boss, or at least a hidden boss. What do you guys think? Um, I think Meyer is a good person in this story. It's the same thing with Sylvia. I think that she knows a lot more than maybe what she's told Kez, like as far as like her daughter and what her daughter got planned. I wouldn't be surprised if Meyer was the one that kind of helped her daughter get and do some of the things that she did. But we still don't know. We still don't know. There's a lot of stuff we don't know about Meyer at all. So but I don't think she's gonna be a bad person though. I think she's gonna be like somebody that's gonna help. That's what I think. I mean, because think about how she acted with Arthur. Like, why would she treat him like that from the jump when she didn't really know anything about him. I mean, we know that they knew more than they let on. Like they knew about the legacy, they knew about all that shit before Arthur even knew about any of this shit even happening. They knew about the reincarnation, they knew about all that shit. So anyway, that's what I think about that. But let me continue. Um, so yeah, so he nearly paid for that encounter with his life, and the underpowered core would make him stronger than before. I had two remaining morning pearls. I didn't know why Lord Ekalia, that's what I'm gonna call it, that's what I'm gonna call him, Ekalia, had given them to me. But as all the events and conversations of what the fuck name is this? Ava Avahalshia, whatever, returning ceremony connected to each other, I grew certain that he had anticipated the events of the ceremony itself. He anticipated the events of the ceremony itself. So he anticipated that he was going to be there during the ceremony. Maybe that's what he's talking about. With his interest in the innocent old uncle act, just that. He knew more than he was letting on. Perhaps even had some hint of future sight about him. See, this brings the question too, because it was brought up before. I don't remember who, but it was brought up before that Kez probably can see the future. Because if Sylvie can get visions of the future, and she, switched from a Vivin path to an Avon path, we know that Kessis is the only other dragon that we know of who has a Avon path, because we know Meyer has a Vivin path, which is why she was able to heal Arthur the way that she did. So we only know of Kessis having an Avon path so far, other than Sylvie. So he probably, being thousands and thousands of years old, can get visions and it's probably more clear. That's probably how he knew about the Jinn. Who knows? We don't even know. But anyway, so he anticipated the events, um, perhaps even had a hint of future sight about him. After all, Kezis has said specifically that dragons rarely experience the kind of visions Sylvie was having now. Maybe it's just because they rarely go into the Avon path. Maybe that's rare to go into the Avon branch. I don't know. Which meant I had been given three morning pearls for a very specific reason. Oh, I see what he's saying. I see what it. So he's saying that he pictured Arthur using the morning pearls in this particular way that's going to line up with Eclea's plan, right? So maybe Arthur's got to be really diligent about what he does with these morning pearls, because these morning pearls might be game changers. They really might be. Um, where was I at? Yeah, so I've been given three morning pearls for a very specific reason, and it will be up to me to decide when and why to use them. Knowing that to save a life, I potentially condemned another in the future. Knowing that to save a life, I potentially condemned. I see what he's saying. So he condemned another life because another life might be in danger that he could save, but he won't be able to save him because he's already used the morning pearls. I think that's where he's getting at. He's going to condemn another life. So somebody else's life that might be important will need to be saved, and he can't do it because he already used the morning pearl. So he's condemning their life. I think that's what he's talking about. With the crown of violet light burnt, so the fucking the light on top of him is like violet. I don't know why I thought the light is like a golden light. I thought of it being like a golden light, but it's a violet light burning from the top of my head, out of sight, but still very much visible in my mind's eye. I understood exactly why such a thing was so valuable and rarely used in Assyrian culture. What the fuck is he talking about? With the crown of violet light burning from the top of my head, out of sight, but still very much visible in my mind's eye. I understood why exact. Oh, he's talking about the morning pearls. That's what he's talking about. I understood exactly why such a thing was so valuable and rarely used in Assyrian culture. He's talking about the morning pearls. Parallel to these thoughts, I held another line for Cecilia. So this motherfucker just got all these lines of thoughts, man. Okay. Her presence in Dicathlon was a larger problem than I had at first considered. Isn't it how the fuck you got a guide room that can make you just so, but it makes sense though. It makes sense because he had to have he had to have training with it, which is what he learned from learning how to form a sword and being able to form multiple swords and being able to form it from a distance and then being able to slash into the into the pathways and shit. So he has to separate his thinking. So he's always been trained with separating his thinking. And so we knew that when he was in there in the Keystone, and in order for him to unlock it and solve it, he had to separate his thinking, not focus on something and be able to see it, but not focus on it too much. Otherwise, it was going to disappear. So I guess it makes sense that the actual God rune that he got was somehow helping to make it easier for him to split his thoughts and his thinking. But I wonder what else it can do though, because it's called King's Gambit. So I wonder what else it can do besides that. But anyway, so parallel to these thoughts, I held another line for Cecilia. Her presence in Decathlon was a larger problem than I had first considered. Perhaps with the assassination of Sharon having failed, they sent her to finish the job. But if that was the case, I didn't see why she would be lingering around the Beast Glades. It was just as likely that Agrona had decided to target Mordain, so Cecilia may have actively been searching for any sign of phoenixes when Chul stumbled right into her. Despite Mordain's pacifism, the Phoenix presence was both a wild card and a potential threat to Agrona's plans. It had worked in Agrona's benefit for some time, as Kezis had indicated that the number or strength of the Asura present in this world had, for a reason I didn't yet understand, been a barrier to his attacking Agrona now. It had worked in Agrona's benefit for some time, as Kezis had indicated that the number or the strength of the Asura present in this world, for a reason I didn't understand yet, had been a barrier to his attacking Agrona. Now, however, Agrona may have decided the risk was no longer worth the benefit. Huh. Okay, so he's trying to figure out why Cecilia was there. Okay. So it's no longer worth the benefit. Okay. But the most likely scenario was that Cecilia was searching for the way to Ephiodus on Agrona's behalf. How the fuck did he just completely just like, oh yeah, it might be this, might be that. But the most likely scenario is that she's doing exactly what she's fucking doing right now. Like that's crazy how you just figured that out. But the most likely scenario was that Cecilia was searching for a way to Ephiodus on Agrona's behalf. I lacked the information to devise a solid theory about exactly why. Although under the effects of King's Gambit, my mind immediately speculated on several different possible. So he's going to be like so calculated, or he's gonna be so calculating that everything's gonna be like percentages to him. I bet it's gonna be like, okay, the likelihood that she's gonna do this is like a 57.5% chance. But then again, there's a 10% chance that this could be happening. But there's also a 20% chance that this could be doing it. He might have, like he might be thinking just in percentages and shit. Yeah, it's crazy. The whole strategy shit, man. King's Bambit, and we still don't even know what it can really do yet. We only getting just the very beginnings of it. So, under the effects of King's Gambit, my mind immediately speculated on several different possibilities or possible reasons, each equally likely. Even still, I couldn't be sure of anything except the fact that Cecilia was the most dangerous piece on the board, and her presence was a disruption and a danger to everyone on the continent, even the dragons. But Cecilia had been trying to cover her tracks, even staying out of the fight against Chul. So he knows that she didn't fight. Okay. But Cecilia had been trying to cover her tracks, even staying out of the fight against Chul, which meant they didn't want us to know she was here. Either way, or either they were afraid of placing her on the front lines because she would become a target, or maybe Agrona didn't have full faith in her, or there was a chance that it was a chance that what she was doing could be interrupted. Having been caught by Mordane, it was plausible she had already retreated out of the Beast Glades, or from Decathlon entirely. Even if she was still in Decathlon, I couldn't pursue her without potentially sacrificing days or even weeks to hunt her through the Beast Glades. And there was a significant possibility, even then, that she could evade me. Oh wait, let me reread that because I said it kind of. So let's try to slow down on this, try to completely understand what's going on. So even if she was still in Decathlon, I couldn't pursue her without potentially sacrificing days or even weeks to hunt her through the Beast Glades. And there was a significant possibility even then that she could evade me. Okay. So yeah, he'll spend a lot of time if he was trying to track her down. She had a clear advantage. She knew what she was doing while I did not. Still, I couldn't let her potentially roam free throughout the continent. Sharon would need to be warned and a patrol of dragons set to scouring the Beastglades. As more and more new threads appear, each new thought weaving into the tapestry of congruent ideas, I sensed a subtle itch, the uncomfortable sensation from my core left by the wound Cecilia had given me with my own etheric sword. What is this? What does that mean? I still don't understand this whole like his scar on his core and the whole itch that he has. And maybe this itch is like important. Maybe the scar is important for him to like, I don't know, to like not take his mind off of his core, like to always, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I'm thinking this is calculated, man. I think that this whole scar shit, because it kind of came out of nowhere, like, oh, you can scar your core with your own sword. It's like, okay, you can scar and cut it. I can go with that. Cool. But then for your core not to be able to completely heal when all we know about ether is that ether completely heals everything, unlike mana, which mana leaves a scar. Ether completely heals everything complete. But all of a sudden his core is left a scar. So maybe there's some other future play for this whole scarred core thing. But I just can't think of like what it could possibly be. Maybe it has to do with his development for him learning how to unlock the fourth keystone. Like something. I don't know. But anyway, where was that? So letting her roam free. The uncomfortable sensation from my core left by the wound Cecilia had given me with my own etheric sword. I focused on it. And like insects scattering under a light, the itch seemed to shiver along each of the individual threads of my thoughts. I stopped channeling King's Gambit, shaking off the strange sensation. The leaf, which was my eyes, had been tracking. Wait, the leaf, which my eyes had been tracking in its flight, fluttered past my nose, then continued its way to the ground. Like that's so crazy just thinking about it. Like he could be he could be focusing on all these thoughts in his head, but at the same time, he could still be keeping track of a leaf that's like fluttering in the wind. Meanwhile, he's having all these individual thoughts. So this dude's like, it's basically like having like 10 brains in one. Like, I want this brain to think about this, then I want you to think about this, and then I want you to focus on this leaf. And he can still do all the shit at the same time. Like this motherfucker can probably just have eyes in the back of his head now, where it's just like, I don't know. The potential is crazy. It really is crazy. Um, but I have to ask though, the people y'all here in the live, like, give me a like for the video to help me out because right now we only got one like so far. But let's keep going. I'm pretty sure the likes go up. But so let's see. Where am I at? So my mind cluttered, still can the possibility of a consonant. Yeah. Okay. So the leaf, which my eyes have been tracking in this flight, fluttered past my nose, then continued its way to the ground. My mind seemed cluttered and muddy. My thoughts out of focus. I had to force myself to stand straight and found my fingers digging into my chest, scratching at the core deep itch that had already subsided. It took some time before I could shake off the effect of the guide room and so what effect does the guide room actually have on him? It seems like it just leaves his thoughts kind of muddy and like that's about it. Like his thoughts are just kind of muddy and out of focus, like he said. So I guess it dissipates after a little bit. So it doesn't last for very long. So I could before I could shake off the effects of the guide room and focus my surroundings again, the creature had returned, creeping even farther down the branches, and was eyeing me hungrily. Letting out a deep breath, I let my mind return to the state I'd been in after waking from the after yeah, is that waking? Yeah, waking from the keystone. Wait, what the fuck? Wait. Letting out a deep breath, I let my mind return to the state I'd been in after waking from the keystone. My feet left the ground and I wobbled slightly. Instinctively, I pulled on the insight I had gained and drifted up a few feet, slowly growing. I was right, bro. I was right. I literally said that he doesn't need to have the guide rule in order for him to fly because he did it without activating the guide rule. And so it's just the insight. The insight is what's allowed him to do it. So he's got to get some practice. Okay, let me see. So then a deep breath, I let my mind return to the state I've been in after waking from the keystone. So his mind went to the state he was in after waking from the keystone. So I guess he has to think about whatever he was thinking about in order for him to fly, I guess. Anyway, my feet left the ground. I wobbled slightly. Instinctively, I pulled on the insight I had gained. That's crazy. You can pull on the insight. I pulled on the insight I had gained and drifted up a few feet, slowly growing accustomed to the sensation. Then, with sudden speed, I launched past the little mana beast through the outstretched branches and the fire orange leaves of the charwood tree and high into the air over the canopy, letting the feel of wind through my hair help to clear the last of the God runes cobwebs from my mind. Unlike flying with mana, which was simply a matter of raw power and control gained by transitioning to a white core, the ability to fly with ether had been triggered through my insight into King's Gambit, or rather, some part of my journey to gaining insight had advanced my innate understanding of the interplay. Bruh. If he has better understanding of the interplay between mana and ether, then that means that his understand this means that his understanding of all the other god runes should like magnify. So if he uses King's Gambit and also use Realm Heart at the same time, he should have even better control of being able to manipulate the ether using or manipulate the mana using ether. So he should be able to more easily control or stop people's spells and all types of shit because he just got that much more understanding now. I mean, even right now, he has better understanding without King's Gambit. So even right now, his use of Realm Heart would be better. But if he combined Realm Heart with King's Gambit, I mean, we don't even know what he could do at that point. He might be able to stop the spell of an sword. You know, like it's crazy. It's crazy. Like the potential, man. Potential is wild. Um, the effect was the same. Oh no, where am I at? So unlike flying with mana, which was simply a matter of raw power and control gained by transitioning to a white core, the ability to fly with ether had been triggered through my insight into King's Gambit, or rather, some part, some part of my journey to gaining insight had advanced my innate understanding of the interplay between the physics of this world and the atmospheric ether to unconsciously defy gravity. The effect was the same. By projecting myself, okay, so by projecting myself through the atmospheric ether, I was able to use the ether to push me up into the air and fly. But there was a lot less atmospheric ether than there was mana, and it was unnatural both in feeling and visualization, like discovering a muscle I'd always had but had never used. So he just needs to practice to strengthen the muscle. When I pushed up, I flew, the ether pushing me even as it slipped aside to let me through. Right, kinda like the ether's maybe kinda like grabbing him through the air, because it slips aside, but kinda like keeps him pushing at the same time. I looked back down at the trees. From below, they had looked like towers, but from so high they were diminished. Watching the wind move the forest canopy, I noted a sense of drawing down as some subtle after effect. Wait. I noted a sense of drawing down as some subtle after effect of King's Gambit left my system. I'll need to be cautious when I use this new power, I thought, noting the way it made me feel afterwards. So how is it making him feel though? Um, don't forget the destruction is going to be OP. Oh, destruction, see, he could have some better understanding of destruction to where he could actually use it better. But remember, I think destruction is still not ever going to be completely in his control because of the fact that he only has half of the power. Because Regis has the rune and Arthur has the insight. I think that's right. I think that's right. Or does Regis have the insight and Arthur has no, I think Regis has the rune and Arthur has the insight. I think that's how that works. But yeah, the itch that may be how Arthur is going to evolve and integration with Ether. I don't think I don't think he's going to integrate with Ether though. I don't know. I don't know, Alex, man. I just don't think he's going to integrate with. I know we talked about this before. I just don't think he's going to integrate with Ether. And the reason I say I don't think he's going to integrate with Ether is because I think that we know that Ether and Mana is like they're not the same. Like they're not even close to being the same at all. And so I think that the way that you evolve with Mana, which is you integrate with the mana to where you no longer need a core, like your whole body is mana at that point. I think that ether is going to be something different. So I think that he could potentially integrate with ether. I just don't think that it's going to work the same way that mana did, which is because his body is already ether. Think about it, right? His body is already ether to the point where you could chop off his arm and the shit just grows back. So like his body is already ether. So I just think it's gonna be different. I don't know how it's gonna work, but I think it's gonna be different. Um, so yeah, so he's talking about he needs to be careful because of what it does, the after effects of the King's Gambit. So what is the after effects of King's Gambit though? Because it seems like he needs to gain a little bit more focus. He has like kind of like little cobwebs in his brain. Let me see. Let me reread this part. So I looked down at the trees. From below, they had looked like towers, but from so high they were diminished. Watching the wind move the forest canopy, I noted a sense of drawing. What does that mean? I noted a sense of drawing down as some subtle after effect of King's Gambit left my system. A sense of drawing down, like maybe he's like drawing down. I don't know what that means. I guess y'all can give me a theory on what that means, 'cause I don't know what that means. So a sense of drawing down. And he says, I'll need to be cautious when I use this new power. I thought, noting the way it made me feel afterwards. Despite the weight of everything resting on my shoulders, I couldn't help but smile as I shot out over the trees and banked south, gauging the direction of my destination before leaning forward and flying away over the treetops, the wind heavy and moist as it blew over me. And so, as I pushed myself to fly faster and faster, projecting a strong etheric intent to ward off any of the more powerful mana beasts that might decide to take a shot at me, I released the veil over my mind. Okay, so he's reaching out to Regis and Sylvie. Released the veil over my mind and reached out probingly for Regis and Sylvie. He returns. Cal Regis always got to come in with this snide remarks. He returns. Regis' voice sounded in my head almost immediately. Your thoughts are murky, Arthur. Sylvie followed up. What's happened? I quickly explained everything that had happened since Chul's healing. For someone who seems to have just won the get shit done lottery, I'm not sensing a lot of positivity here. Regis said with his usual charm. I may have discovered a power that will let me think several things at the same time. But what I really need is the ability to be in several places at once, I thought. Barring that, I need answers. Regis, who has stayed with Aladari and was yeah, Regis who stayed with Aladari. Who the fuck is Aladari again? I think Aladari is the one that was captured, right? By the Sovereign? Or that was captured that they rescued from the Wraiths. The former Sovereign, I think. I think that's Aladari. I think that's right. So Regis who had stayed with Aladari and was now at the Flying Castle, guarding the Vitreous cell. Yeah, guarding the Vitreous cell. So yeah, so that's it. That's the Vitreous. Okay. Brighton. Does that mean you're headed this way? I trade all that busty demon lady. I trade all the busty demon ladies in Alacria to get out of here. I think I might be bored to death. All of them? Sylvie chimed in. Sylvie's even coming in with the man. All of them? Sylvie's like, all we really trade all of them? In the mental projection of her voice, tinkling like a silver bell. Well, not Fair Lady Kara, of course, he answered defensively. I shook my head. I say you got along with the ether centipede beast of all. Wait, yeah. I say you got along with the ether centipede beast of all. Wouldn't you? Now, changing the subject, the act of flying itself was exhilarating, and Regis and Sylvie helped to lighten the weight of my many layered worries, making it go by even faster. Still, with so many thoughts occupying and I don't think it uses any sort of ether for him to fly either. Now that I'm thinking about it. Okay. And my ability to only, yeah, with so many things occupying my skull, and my ability only to process one thing at a time without Gambit active, I was relieved when the tall walls and peaked roofs of the flying castle came into view, looming out of the fog like a giant bird of prey. The distortion field that had once hidden the castle was long since disabled, and two large dragons, one gleaming like sapphires and the other dull green of mossy rock, circled around the exterior. It took them a moment to notice me, as I lacked the mana signature for them to sense as I approached. But when the green dragon saw me, both banked hard and flew swiftly in my direction. Halt! Who? Ah, the lesser with golden eyes. That's what they call him, the lesser with golden eyes. The sapphire dragon said, beating her wings to stay in place. We were told to expect you. Follow me. Wheeling around, she flew to an open bay door, the same one that Sylvie and I had often used to enter and exit the castle during the war. As I landed beside her, she transformed, her body shrinking to reveal a statuesque woman with porcelain hair and armor the same color her scales had been in her dragon form. Come, I'll take you to Guardian Sharon and the prisoner, she said stiffly, her deep blue eyes, which were speckled with glittering white motes, studying me warily. Here's another thing too. Whenever he uses King's Gambit, he can't even really use it in like secret because he has that that violet crown that shines over his head apparently and lights up the room and shit. Actually, I don't think there's anything he can use discreetly because Realmheart makes his eyes light up and shit. And then um I don't think Aurora's Requiem does anything. No, I don't think Aurora's Requiem does. Maybe it makes him glow. Maybe. Anyway, I'll take you to Guardian Sharon and the prisoner, she said stiffly, her deep blue eyes was respectful with the glittering white motes studying me warily. I know the way. I strode past her, heading for a nearby hall. Has there been any trouble? She hurried, so she was walking just behind and beside me. Some of the scouts came upon a forest fire, likely the site of an intense magical battle, but we found no source. Acknowledging her with a nod, I searched automatically through the castle, sensing the powerful mana signatures radiating strength. Sharon and Winsome were deep in the bowels where I knew the prison was, the same prison that had once held retainer Uto and Rhedeus, the traitorous dwarf who I haven't heard Rhedeus in a long time. Rhedeus, he had some like vision and shit. He was trying to like it was some poem he had gave to Arthur. I don't think they ever even figured out what the hell that poem was even about. You know what I'm saying? I wonder if he's gonna think about that poem because we still don't know what the fuck that poem even meant. Maybe with his new thinking, ability with King's Gambit, he can maybe figure something out. But it probably isn't gonna be important though. Anyway, but yeah, Rhedeus, haven't heard that shit in a long time. Where was I at? See, I always forget where I'm at whenever I kind of go on thinking about something else. I know the way. Okay, Rhedeus, the traitorous dwarf who helped Nico infiltrate Decathlon under the persona of Elijah. I don't think of Elijah often, and I didn't allow myself to do so now. It was too strange, too painful. To know that my closest friend in this world had never even existed, but rather had been a figment of Agrona's twisted mind. In all, I sensed five other dragons besides Sharon and Wisdom, as well as the familiar signature of an Asura of the Titan race. I didn't know what Ren Kane would be doing there. He should be back in Vildorio finishing the project he and Gideon were working on, but I would soon find out. As I made my way down through the castle, my escort and I entered a wide hallway that brought me up short. The memory of my last time in the castle surfaced with a sudden violence, and I recalled bodies scattered over the floor, half trapped in the rubble that had crushed them. It hadn't really occurred to me earlier, but this was my first time returning to the flying castle since then, since Cadell. It's been repaired, I said loud. I said out loud, speaking to myself. The poem was about Arthur testing Nico. How do we know that? Did they explain that was the what the poem was about, Micah? Because I don't even remember them even like clarifying that at all. Maybe I just read too much stuff and I just don't recall. That's probably what it is. But but what exactly was it about? Like was it like a warning or something? I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, it's been repaired. Yes, my escort said stiffly. This flying castle was in poor shape, and it required significant work to make it fit for dragons of the Indref clan. I brushed my hand against the restored wall, a pang of indignation bubbling up at the thought that any traces of but Bun, Bun, and the others who have fought and lost their. I think he's talking about the dude who helped train him when he was White Core. I think that's what he's talking about. Boone. I think it was Virian's friend. He was a dwarf. I think. I think that's what he's talking about. I can't think. Is it Boond? It might be Boond. I don't know. And all the others who have fought and lost their lives here were gone. Reaching the prison level, my dragon escort allowed me into the locked and warded dungeon, but did not follow me within. In the guard room, on the other side, I found Sharon, Winsome, and Ren Kane waiting for me. Sharon, Winsome, and Ren Kane waiting for me. Regis, I could sense further in, keeping an eye on our prisoner. Sharon regarded me with clear interest. Ah, Arthur, Winsome has been filling us in on your journey to Ephiodus. Too bad about the young dragon, Ren said, his tone empty of any actual sadness. Of course, her clan will receive more recompense for her death than the combined families of all the lessers that battle destroyed, so I suppose there's that. I searched Ren's gaze, looking for meaning in the dark eyes, half hidden beneath his greasy, drooping mane. My expression must have given away my thoughts because Ren gave me a sharp laugh. Sharon invited me to speak to the basilisk. I didn't know the two of you knew each other, I responded, looking to the scarred dragon. Oh, yeah, Sharon and I go way back, Ren answered in mock pleasantry. He's not bad for an Indrath. Winsome glared at Ren, but Sharon only chuckled. Anyway, I've been helping, trying to help the dragons make sense of Aladari, but he's been purposefully obtuse since you left. Ren crossed his arms, an action that made his hunched posture more exaggerated. For a supposed genius, he sure does come across as a lunatic idiot. Lunatic idiot. Never seen that fucking together. A lunatic is normally what people would say, but a lunatic idiot, I don't know about that. Let's see. Oh, Vasquez is here. Okay, cool, 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 cool. I think I might be halfway through the chapter right now. But anyway, he comes across as a lunatic idiot. I consider this the fact that I was pitting the word of a lunatic basilisk who had every reason to lie and manipulate me against the Lord of all the Asuras, my ally, wasn't lost on me. But then I already knew I couldn't take anything Keza said at face value either. Every conversation with him was like a match of sovereigns quarrel, except I didn't necessarily know what the objective of the game was. With Alidari, it was much clearer. That's unfortunate, but nonetheless, I've come to speak with Alidari. I met Winsome's otherworldly eyes. Then, per my agreement with Kezis, you're free to Then, per my agreement with Kezis, you're free to transport him back to Ephiodus. Expressionlessly, I think, yeah, expressionlessly, Winston replied, ah, and here I fear you spent weeks, if not months, beating around the bush as you lessers love to do so. Or love, yeah, as you lessers so love to do. I'm glad to see you being sensible for once, Arthur. When I didn't reply except with a cool stare, Sharon cleared his throat and he does not like Winsome, bro. Man, he doesn't give two shits about like man. He don't even want to even have a cordial conversation with him. He just like just give him the stare. That's it. Just stare. Like I ain't got shit to say to you, Winsome. Anyway, so Sharon cleared his throat and gestured for me to follow. He led our group into the prison itself, which was empty except for a special cell that had been redesigned specifically for the basilisk. Aladari was chained to a wall with his arms held out to his sides, rune-covered cuffs of dull metal binding him at both wrists and ankles, and around his throat. When he shifted, his corkscrew horns clattered against the warded stone beneath him. Seeing me through the small barred window of his cell, he gave a wide he gave a wide grin and his lips began to move. But I couldn't hear the words until Sharon sent a pulse of mana into the door and eased it open. Also, so it was blocked against sound as well. To save me from the burden of these dragons, he was saying. The first half of his words inaudible within the word itself. The affected grin slipped as his bright eyes burrowed into my own. So then, human, have you come to your senses? Am I to be returned to my homeland and offered the protection of the Lord of Dragons? Noting his unsubtle addition of protection to his demands, I stepped into the cell and looked around. Okay. Regis was curled in a large ball on the hard stone of the floor. His eyes opened lazily as I looked down at him, and he winked. I'm with the basilisk on this one. Please save us from the boredom of each other's company. Aldari clicked his tongue. I rather thought you more interesting than the rest of these self-important Asura. Heartbreaking that you don't share the same sentiment. They let you stay in the cell with him? I asked Regis, probing his mind for his experience of the last couple of days. They haven't allowed me they haven't allowed me to be present for the interrogations, Regis sent back, carefully avoiding looking at Winston and Sharon behind me. But they've complained loudly and often about how unreasonable and insane Aladari is. You don't think he's insane? Something Fox in the hen house, we just thought blandly. What the hell? Stepping up close to the chain Vitcher, I let my gaze sweep across them, lingering on the shackles. Okay, so let me just stop for a second. So, I mean, I wonder what they're trying to find out because it seems to me like Alidari doesn't want to explain everything, at least not to them. So maybe he's going to give more information to Arthur during this whole interrogation thing. It was a warning that Nico would take tests. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. I wonder when we found that out because I did not know. That's interesting. Anyway, so let's continue. Okay, something Fox in the hen house. We just thought blankly. Stepping up close to the chain Vitri, I let my gaze sweep across them, lingering on the shackles. I have spoken with Lord Indreth, and he has agreed to allow your return to Ephiodus as a prisoner. But the specifics of that return, how long you linger in our world, a target for your high sovereign, are left up to me. Your future hinges on answering my questions fully and without any games. I paused, letting him digest my words. I haven't forgotten my previous threat. Preventing a Gruner from getting his hands on you is still my priority. Wait, I haven't forgotten my previous threat. Preventing a Gruner from getting his hands on you is still my priority. And if it makes more sense to kill you than send you to Ephiodus, I won't hesitate to do so. Winsome shifted behind me, but Aladari was impassive, answering only with an understanding nod. Okay, I mean, listen, man. I don't think anybody would be able to stop him from killing Aladari, man. I don't think they'd be able to do shit, bro. Like Arthur's kind of, I don't know where I got Arthur at power level wise, but this motherfucker is just constantly gaining, man. Constantly since he unlocked the ability to stab into the pathways. It's crazy. It's 204. Okay. Okay. So he let him digest it. He was impassive and he answered with an understanding nod. I would have preferred to question him further without Winsome and Sharon present, but I didn't give them the power to refuse. Yeah, but I didn't give them the power to refuse by asking. Yeah, so he doesn't want to ask them and have them say no, which gives them power. So I get that. As I already knew their answer. Crossing my arms, I widened my stance and made a show of mulling over my words. I knew what I wanted to learn, but extracting the information from Aladari without making either him or the dragon suspicious was a delicate operation. So he's trying to get the information without drawing the attention of Sharon and Winsome. Okay, so how is he gonna do this? All right, so here we go. Why does Agrona want to take over Ephiodus? I asked after several long seconds passed. What is his goal in it all? Simple revenge against Kezes and the others of the simple revenge against Kezes and the others of the great clans? Aldari frowned slightly, his eyes tracking quickly across my features. He seemed to be puzzling something out in his mind. Finally, he said, a good question. For what reason would the High Sovereign need control of Ephiodus? To be surrounded by Asura of the other races, many older and more magically powerful than he? To return to our homeland would and that's what I said too. I'm just like, why would he want to take over Ephiodus when like they still got powerful as people in Ephiodus, even though we know Agrona's pretty powerful, but I mean Aladari's pretty much saying that there's other people in Ephiodus that's more powerful than Agrona is right now, not including um Kezis. So that's something. Because I thought that there wasn't really that many people that was rivaling Kezis in power. But maybe Agrona's not as strong as we might think he is. I mean, we know Kez is top one, but maybe Agrona's just he's not that. I mean, he said it. He said that a good question. For what reason would the High Sovereign need control of Ephiodus to be surrounded by a Sura of the other races, many older and more magically powerful than he? To return to our homeland would, I imagine, be Agrona's worst nightmare. He has not spent these last centuries surrounding himself with lessers and Lesserians without reason. He paused, his gaze now flicking to the two dragons behind me. Whoever told you this is perhaps attempting to distort your view of the overall picture of this conflict. This is exactly what Kezis said, but Arthur already knew that was some bullshit. So whoever told you this is perhaps attempting to distort your view of the overall picture of this conflict. The greater conflict between Agrona and Indrith, that is. Or Indrath. I said Indrith. Foolishness, Winsome scoffed. Of course, Agrona is attempting to return to our homeland. There is no other reason to wage war against Ephiodus as he has done. His entire effort in forcefully taking Dicathlon was simply to set the stage for the larger conflict, as we know well. His tone was stiff, almost forced. Raising my hand for silence, I glanced over my shoulder. I like to hold off on the extra commentary. I need to focus. Preparing myself for the flood of stimuli, I activated King's Gambit. Okay. In Aladari's eyes, I saw the light swell around me, gathering and so can he not see the light? In Aladari's eyes, I saw the light swell around me, gathering and focusing, or fusing, until a many-pointed crown of pure radiance was hovering just over my hair, turning the pale blonde to a bright glowing white. What is going to be their reactions? The crease of his nostrils widened as they flared, and his pupils focused entirely on the glowing crown, dilated a fraction of an inch. The skin around his eyes wrinkled ever so slightly as he squinted against the light. The air shifted as it pressurized through a gap in the stone somewhere, and a few strands of Aladari's unkept hair waved. There is a leak in the stonework somewhere. My voice had a hollow quality to my own ears as it was filtered through the mind enhancing aspects of King's Gambit, both as I spoke the words and again as I listened to them vibrate through the air. Beneath the smells of dust and stone, and more subtly the distant flora of the beast glades, Aladari had a metallic ozone burn to his scent. Wait, is he just noticing all this from the King's Gambit? Beneath the smells of the dust and stone, and more subtly the distant flora of the beast glades, Aladari had a metallic. Oh, I think he's noticing this from King's Gambit. He's literally noticing the smells better. Ozone burned to his scent, and the fairest or the faintest trace of nervous sweat. Sharon smelled of old leather, blade oil, and the blood of a fresh kill, while Winsome scented himself with some kind of flowery perfume that couldn't quite hide the distant, earthy fragrance of Mount Geolis. Ugh, why am I suddenly smelling myself? And why do I smell like brimstone and cinnamon rolls? Regis projected. Right, because Arthur's smelling Regis, and then Regis is connected to Arthur's mind, so now he's smelling himself. But wouldn't he already smell himself? Because isn't he a wolf? So shouldn't he have And hand sent too? I don't know. Who knows? All right. So why am I suddenly smelling myself? And why do I smell like brimstone and cinnamon rolls? Regis projected, shaking his head slightly as my God rune amplified thoughts flowed. Yeah, my God rune amplified thoughts flowed freely between us. Behind me, I sensed Sharon turn to look at Winsome, whose brow furrowed and jaw tensed as he glared at my back. You said before that Agronis is attempting to concentrate power, that he knew something, that this knowledge is connected to the layered dimensions that make up this reality. You said you'd tell me everything you knew. My words thrust at him like the tip of a spear. If my current understanding is flawed, then correct it. Aldari's eyes seemed to flex, as if he was forcing them into place, preventing them from flickering past my right shoulder to Sharon. Of course, Your Majesty. Your Majesty. What's up, gamer? Game strategist. I went back to check the previous chapters and I noticed something weird about Winsome around Sylvie. Do you think Winsome has feelings for Sylvie? I don't think Winsome even knows Sylvie at all. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you thought. I don't know what you found out was weird, Lebo, but um, I mean, Sylvie's like what, 4, 5, 6? No, she can't be that young. She's been alive for how many years? Arthur was like, how old was Arthur when he first woke her up? It was like, was he like 11 or 8 or some shit? I don't know how old he was. And now he's like 20 something. So Arthur, so Sylvie's like what? Maybe she's like 12, maybe? I don't know. That'd be kind of weird. That's just what I think. Because she still would be considered a kid. So no, I don't think he'd have feelings for her. That'd just be weird. But anyway, so he said, yes, Your Majesty. Where was that at? Of course, Your Majesty, he said, attempting to layer thick amusement over his voice, likely to hide the tension now gripping his throat and making his words come out strained. Yes, as I said, he seeks power, not to become a warlord and ruler of Eodas, but to consume everything. So he basically just want to be the strongest person in the world to where nobody can fuck with him. Like the world lion, he would eat even his own young, the people of Alafria, for dominance, but only after he has scoured Dicathin and Eodas. I compared his words and tone to what he said and how he'd spoken previously, dissecting the meaning in timbre as I established a baseline to establish truth versus the lies. Regis has set up. His eyes wobbled, growing cross. Nope, can't. Oh, this is horrible. I think I'm going to blow chunks. His mind disengaged from my own, a barrier forcing its way between us. I could feel the wall's edges and the cracks within it, and I knew I could punch through if necessary. But there was no need to force Regis' engagement with the conversation, even if his perspective might help broaden my own. Somewhere far off, I felt Sylvie's mind I felt Sylvie's mind similarly shield itself. The effects of the God rune don't extend to my companions, I noted. As much as I would prefer not to be a victim of such planetary cannibalism, Aldari continued, I do think it is extremely amusing that you so gladly hold the dragon's tail, letting wait, let me read. I do think it is extremely amusing that you so let me turn this a little bit. I do think it is extremely amusing that you so gladly hold the dragon's tail, letting Lord Indref drag you along wherever he wills, considering his own crimes are just as great, are they not? That's true. That's true. Watch your tongue, Vitra. Winsome snapped, taking a step forward threateningly as Aladari spoke ill of Kezis. We already know, little dog always gotta be there to protect his master. I felt the desire to frown, but cut it off before the expression could manifest. There was a heightened quality to Winsome's voice, an edge that suggested a premeditated response. Tell me more about these layers, I said to Aladari, holding Winsome at bay with the quickest of glances over my shoulder. Aladari's tongue dragged across the back of his teeth, and his fingers tensed, but he held them back from twitching. He had a high level of self-control physically, an ability that had previously not presented itself when he was held captive by the wraiths. This suggested a deeply ingrained fear of physical harm to his person or even death. And though tense, he was not currently afraid for his life. You yourself came from a different world, correct? He said. You have a different kind of magic there. Key, I believe I was informed. But neither of the other reincarnates could channel Ki when they came to this world because it is a different type of magic than mana, requiring a different atmosphere and biology. Okay, I get it. I get what he's saying. So they can't channel Ki because their biology is different. Their bodies, they're not attuned to even be able to do that. And then the atmosphere is different. So the atmosphere doesn't support the channeling of Ki. So that's what I think he means by that. Around 11 or 8 when she was hatched from real for real. She's a baby Asura. Yeah, yeah, definitely a baby Asura. But anyway, but neither of the other reincarnates could channel Ki when they came to this world because it's a different type of magic than mana, requiring a different atmosphere and biology. When adjusted, Ren adjusted his posture, causing a muffled clink from inside of his coat. The two links of a chain bumping together. Aldari spoke faster as he continued, leaning into the story he was telling. Another world, an entirely different structure of magic. Imagine it. The people of Alakria are often limited to a single spell in its variable forms. The people of your continent, just one element of mana. My own people can control all four primary elements, but only through the lens of our own understanding, which you call the attribute of decay. Oh, I see what you're saying. So, okay. So he's basically breaking it down. So he's like, okay, so the Alacrians can only control one type of mana or a single spell, I guess, but they can vary the different forms of the spell. And then their people can control only one element of mana with the Cathars. And then the Asuras can control, or at least the Basilisks, they can control all of the four primary elements, but they only can control it using their understanding, which is the decay attribute. So all the other like the fire attribute mana from the phoenixes, so they can only control all four of the elements through like a fire attribute or type of mana. So they have a decay type mana. So they got like the sound decay, they got the water decay, they got fire decay, they got wind decay, earth decay. I guess the earth decay would be the spikes and shit that they be using. Um, so yeah, so my own people control all four primary elements, but only through the lens of our own understanding, which you call attribute of decay. The dragons can wield pure mana and toddle about with their little ether arts. He called it little ether arts. Can toddle about with their little ether arts, whereas the jinn wrote with ether like they discovered the native language of reality. He's just trying to talk about how the jinn was so much better when it came to manipulating ether than the dragon. So he's basically just low blowing the dragon, saying like, yeah, y'all motherfuckers not that great. The jinn blow you out of the water. He let out a awed sigh, as if he had just said something profound. I noted the pattern of him telling me only things I already knew, and as I did, I felt the itch again. It wasn't in my core, but crawling along the thread of thought itself, deep in the folds of my brain. These are the layers I spoke of: mana, ether, even ki. Perhaps there are other types of magic out there as well. The pitch of his voice um, modulated, I think that's how you say that, very slightly, and his eyes repeated the tense without looking flex. Yeah, without looking flex from before. I don't know what that means. But regardless, Agrona has never been satisfied with the basilisk lot in life. Why would we only be effective in utilizing decay type meta arts when we should have it all? Well, why should you have it all? What makes you think you deserve all of it? It don't even make any sense. But this explanation didn't align with his previous statements. Tangible, is that how you say that word? Tangential? Tan Let me look this up. We got some learning to do. How the fuck do you say this word? And for some reason, the sound won't work on my computer. It won't work. Where is sound coming out of? Let me see. Oh, that's why. Let me see if I can change this really quick. Okay. Let's see if this works now. There we go. Now the sound's coming out. Tangential. Relating to or along a tangent. Okay. So basically it's a tangent. Okay. Anyway, perhaps even true, but nonetheless an obfuscation. Obfuscation. How the fuck do you say this, man? Obfuscation. What? I've heard this word before. Obfuscation. Obfuscation. Okay. Obfuscation. That's the word. Obfuscation. Obfuscation. The action of making something obscure, unclear, or unintelligible. Like you obfuscate. Whatever. Whatever. You have been enemies because for a long time. Don't be laughing at me, okay? It's not my fault. The English language is stupid. Maybe it is my fault. I don't know. Who cares? You have been enemies because for a long time. You're aware of what happened to the gent. Tell me, what do you think Kez's overreaching goal is? Yeah, yeah, overarching goal is. Winsam's scowl was audible. Arthur, this is an appropriate line of questioning. Aldari snorted with amusement. Interrupted Winsome. He's playing king on the mountain, obviously. This basilisk is attempting to confuse you and pit you against Lord Indreth, Winsome said too quickly. I would recommend you do not engage with him further. This time I was more certain his words may not have been scripted, but they were premeditated. Several tangled threads of thought wound around each other, and each one amplified the skittering. Bug-like itch that was vibrating out of my cord into my mind. The itch was being echoed from each simultaneous thought, no more than a slight irritant by itself. But the longer I channeled Keen's gambit, the more um simulation wait, simul simultaneous. That's what I fucking said. Okay, threads of thought I activated. The more intense the sensation became. So the more threads of thought he activated, the more intense the itching becomes. Sharon cleared his throat and rested a hand on my shoulder. Arthur, perhaps we should take a break. You seem strained. Some sign of the growing irritation must have leaked through onto my expression. I clamped down on the parts of my brain responsible for both the purposeful and the subconscious movements of my face and body, forcing my lips to slow, my expression to soften. So this motherfucker he can have even more control over his body. He clamped down on the parts of his brain responsible for both the purposeful and the subconscious movements of his face. So he literally can clamp down on his brain subconsciousness to stop his body from doing things subconsciously. That shit's wild. That's crazy. So anyway, so he clamped down on the parts of his brain responsible for the purposeful and subconscious movements of his face and his body, forcing his pulse to slow, my expression to soften, and my every breath to come out calm and level. Winsome, why did you give Ellie a guardian bear? I asked suddenly, following a new thread as I continued to hold the others. Okay, let's see where this goes. There was a hesitation, a change in his breathing. I turned. So this motherfucker's senses all go up too, not just thoughts. Like he can smell, he can hear, like everything goes up. Like he's basically like what's he's like Daredevil, you know? Like you blind but you can see because all your other senses go up. There was a hesitation, a change in his breathing. I turned my head a few degrees, aligning my ear to better hear the micro changes to his bearing that would normally be drowned out by everything else. I was trying to make you comfortable so that you would leave your family. Even then, I knew how protective you were, enough to forego the experience of training in Epiotis if you were too worried about your family. An honest answer, I gauged, but he'd had to decide first how truthful he was going to be. Okay, so that was the hesitation. The hesitation was to decide how truthful he was going to be. What will Kezis do with Olidari when he's returned to Epiotis? I followed up quickly. I heard his response, but I didn't worry over the words themselves. Instead, so he's not even listening to him. Listening, listening to the tone, the cadence. But it wasn't truly Winsome I was focusing on, but rather gauging the intensity of Sharon's interest as we shifted topics. Okay, okay. This so he's playing like hella games right now. So he's asked the question. Okay, so he asked the first question to Winsome because he wanted to gauge, you know, how truthful he was going to be, or he just wanted to study him, right? So he saw the hesitation. So the hesitation to him said that he was trying to figure out how truthful he was going to be. He listened to what he said, and he said that okay, that was a truthful response. So then he asked another question about what Kez was going to do with Alidari. He didn't care about what Winsome had to say. He was cared about the tone and the cadence in which the way that Winsome said it. I guess he's trying to figure out how to be able to tell when Winsome's telling the truth and when Winsome is lying. But then also at the same time, he's gauging the interest that Sharon has in the topics that they're talking about. So maybe he's trying to gauge whether or not Sharon cares about some of the things. Maybe Sharon has some sort of hand into some things to where he doesn't want those things to be revealed or something. Man, he's playing some games, man. So rather gauging the intensity of Sharon's interest as we shifted topics, I waited, letting the silence linger well beyond the point of discomfort, watching and listening to everything the three Asuras did, even cataloging Regis' micro movements. For the first time, something broke my concentration and my thoughts stumbled. Uh-oh. The itching was more powerful now, like a swarm. So this is dumb though. So you're telling me that the scar on his core is causing him not to be able to use King's Gambit fully because the itching gets overwhelming? I mean, maybe the whole point of the whole itchingness was because Turtle Meat already knew that he was going to do King's Gambit and he wanted to give King's Gambit some sort of flaw so that way he couldn't just spam it and just continue to use it to just solve the world because he said that the more lines of thought that he makes, the more the itching gets overwhelming. So I mean, basically the itching is just a nerf for the power. Is kind of what I'm thinking of right now. Um, so he even cataloged Regis' micro movements. For the first time, something broke my concentration and my thoughts stumbled. The itching was more powerful now, like a swarm of ants gnawing on me from the inside. But I was certain. Sharon had made some kind of deal Sharon had made some kind of deal with Aladari. The victor's answers were specifically designed to, hide certain facts, obfuscate, whatever the fuck. He will be returned to Epiotis and rewarded in a way I couldn't duplicate. Shifting gears to ensure I covered the other essential topics before I could no longer keep the guy room active, I asked the legacy. Before, you suggested that she wasn't a weapon, but a tool. Cecilia is the key to Grona's absorption of. Cecilia is the key to Grona's absorption of mana directly from the other sovereigns. So maybe that's what the table's for. Maybe that's what the table's for. The table is for him to study, I guess, her powers to where he can figure out a way to suck out the mana. Because they said that it was a Grona who sucked out the mana from the other sovereign that was there. That's something, man. So she's not really a weapon. She's a tool for him to gain more power. Even though he tells her that she's a weapon, but really she's just something that he's using to not only he can use to, as like a power play or like as a power up or an instrument of power, but he also can use her to I think his number one goal is to use her to grow his own power, to absorb other virtuous mana. But I was confused because he talked about how people who started Vitral started dying before. Slowly they started dying, but the Vitral was so absorbed with their experiments that they didn't really notice all the Vitral dying. But Cecilia never came into she never been reincarnated into Tessia's body by then. So how was he absorbing the mana from the basilisk, them disappearing before Cecilia ever got involved? That's what I don't understand. Okay, so where was I? The legacy. Before you asked, she wasn't a, so Cecilia is the key to Grona's absorption of mana directly from the other sovereigns. But not only that, he seeks to unlock new powers for himself. Tell me, will she survive this process? Wait, is that Aladari asking? Um, Cecilia is the key to Grona from the other sovereigns. But not only that, he seeks to unlock new powers for himself. Tell me, will she survive this process? A coy smile played across Aladari. Wait, oh, this is Arthur talking. See, I lost track. So Arthur's saying this. Arthur is saying the legacy. Before you suggested she wasn't a weapon, but a tool. Cecilia is the key to Agrona's absorption of mana directly from other sovereigns. But not only that, she seeks to unlock new. He seeks to unlock new powers for himself. Tell me, will she survive this process? A coy smile played across Aladari's face. Are you asking about the reincarnate or the vessel? You've been paying attention. You consider yourself intelligent, which means you've planned for the worst. I suppressed a shiver and had to forcefully hold my hand back from scratching my sternum. How would you fight back against the legacy if she came after you? Aladari raised one brow, his mouth parting slightly in surprise. He thought for a few moments, but his eyes never left my own. Complete mastery over mana, no core, so her entire body acts on and reacts to mana. She is incredibly sensitive to mana, which I think can be turned against her. She isn't terribly creative, and so doesn't make full use of her strengths, and she is mentally weak. If one were to overwhelm her senses and put her on her back foot, send her reeling, she would not quickly recover. As Aladari spoke, a new thread of thought broke away, forming into an idea. Fledgling and dangerous, but uh irrepressible. I needed to delve into the fourth keystone to solve it and gain the aspect of fate. But if what Mordane said was true, I might be trapped in it for an unknown length of time. Agrona had consistently proved to be several steps ahead of me, and I had no idea how many spies he might have in Decathlon. I couldn't simply trust that my absence would go unnoticed, and I had to accept that my use of the fourth keystone presented a dangerous moment. Let me see. I couldn't simply trust that the absence of me will go unnoticed, and I had to accept that my use of the fourth keystone represented a dangerous moment for Decathlon. With Cecilia already on our shores pursuing an unknown goal, it would be the height of foolishness not to prepare. But I could simultaneously protect against an intrusion targeting me or Decathlon while I was vulnerable and ensure Cecilia was neutralized, at least temporarily, at the same time. I asked a couple of follow-up questions, careful not to give away too much to either Aladari or the dragons, but was quickly reaching the end of my ability to withstand the itch. which came in the forms of thousands of bugs crawling under my skin, amplified by every layer of my woven thoughts. When I was done, I turned wordlessly and swept past the dragons and ran, leaving the cell and marching down the hall beyond. So, what did he really get out of questioning Aladari in the first place? It doesn't seem like he got too much. Um, Leaving the cell and marching down the hall. Only then did I release my hold over Keen's gambit, when no one else, when no one would see how my face fell or the cold sweat that sprang to my forehead. I felt Regis's mind return, touching my own tentatively, then recoil again. Hey, Chief, you gonna be all right? I'm fine. I sent back even as I powered through the guy room's after effects. By the time I reached the prison entrance, I felt at least able to speak without slurring my words, and stopped and waited for the others to catch up. A waste of time, Winston said simply as he joined me in the outer guard chamber. Unfortunately, I have to agree, Sharon added, outwardly chagrined. I had hoped you'd be able to get more out of him when you activated that spell. He paused, looking at me questioningly. I almost responded honestly, the words on the tip of my tongue before I swallowed them back down. Instead, I said only, I'm satisfied. Kezis is expecting him, and I'd like this Richard out of Decathlon as soon as possible. Right now, in fact. There is no reason to tempt Agrono with some effort to reclaim him, regardless of my earlier threat. Agreed, Wisdom said, looking to Sharon for confirmation. The scarred dragon nodded his acceptance. Ren, who had listened thoughtfully throughout my questioning, especially once the conversation turned into the legacy, had come to stand beside me. I'm needed back in Vildoria. Are you headed there as well? There were several parts. This is a long chapter. Shit. How long have I been streaming? It feels like I've been streaming for an hour and a half almost. Oh shit. Okay. No, I'm good. Okay. LOL. The only nerf she has. Yeah, yeah, Cecilia. Yeah, I get it. Just fucking ugh. Everything about her is just terrible. Like I've never met such a horrible character in like a lot of the series and books I've been reading. Like that's just and at least if you have a bad character, they get killed off pretty quickly to where you don't have to deal with them anymore. But she's like a main character in this story, and she's horrible. First we get Nico. Well, first we get Elijah. Elijah was cool. Then we get Nico, and it's just like, ugh. And then Cecilia comes back, and then it's just like she just slowly gets more terrible the longer we find out more about her. It's just like, goodness gracious. But that's just what it is. We just got to deal with it the best we can. It's kind of like got to take the good with the bad. It's kind of how I look at it. So anyway, so Ren needs to go back to Vidoria. So is Arthur about to go with him? Let's see. So are you headed there as well? There were several parties I needed to speak with in the Darvish capital, but most of all, I wanted to check in on Ellie and Mom. I agreed. We've repaired some of this fortress functionality, Sharon said from behind me, including the teleportation devices, which were thankfully not destroyed entirely by the previous fighting. Vajrakor had also seen fit to relocate one of the long-range teleportation frames from Western Darv into Vildorio, allowing us to move more quickly between strategically important locations. I can understand the convenience, but that is a big risk, I noted. All precautions have been taken to ensure the security of the city and its people, Sharon assured me. I nodded, acknowledging that this was the Door's decision to make. I wasn't their ruler. He continued to speak about the infrastructure changes they made around the largest of Decathlon cities as I led the way through the repair halls to the teleportation chamber. Despite the fact that they kept the artifacts deactivated when not in use, there was still a single dragon guard in place over the chamber. But they moved aside at our approach. Winsome and Sharon stopped outside the chamber as Ren and I stepped through the wide doors. Memories flooded my fatigued mind, and an uncomfortable but nameless emotion uh, gripped my stomach like a fist, twisting it. I saw as if as if reliving it again for the first time, as wounded soldiers limped and were dragged from the room while I searched face after face, looking for the twin horns and Tessia. Tess had returned, but my parents' old friend Adam hadn't. Arthur? Wren asked as he nearly bumped into me from behind. I had stopped cold without realizing it. Fine, I muttered, experiencing a strong sense of deja vu as I faced Sharon. I'm going to need you to coordinate with a large operation soon, but I need time to plan out the finer details. Will you be here? Will you be here or in Edison? Sharon looked around at the castle. I have decided to stay here and make our base of operations for the moment. It is close to the rift. It is close to the rift, and the teleportation array allows us instant access to most of your continent. Nodding, I quickly explained what I learned about Cecilia's presence, leaving out everything about Murdane and the Phoenixes, and instead making it sound like Chul had been scouting on my orders when he was attacked, and I had learned everything from him. Winston's frown deepened as he listened to my explanation, but he kept his thoughts to himself. Sharon, on the other hand, hung on every word. That explains the site of their battle, then. I will ensure the guard on the rift is increased, although there is no way she would be able to locate it if that truly is their goal. Hmm. I provided some suggestions on what to watch for and a few details about. So maybe this rift was created to be able to easily send dragons in and out. And so before there wasn't a rift, you had to like make a whole. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I still don't know a whole lot about this whole rift thing. That explains the site of their battle then. I will ensure the guard on the rift is increased, although there is no way she would be able to locate it if that truly is their goal. I provided some suggestions on what to watch for and a few details about my previous battle with Cecilia. When Ren and I bid the others farewell, we activated the teleportation portal and set out for Vidoria. The continent rushed by around us in a blur as we were near instantly shunted from the eastern beast glades to the very heart of Dark. Over a dozen heavy armed and armored dwarves and a dragon in her humanoid form guarded the portal on the other side. They scrambled for a moment when we stepped through, but all quickly recognized Ren and myself and were allowed by without trouble. When can we expect you to come review progress on our experiment? Ren asked, stopping where our paths diverged. Soon, I said, glancing behind me to the gates to the Earthborn Institute. How long until you can have that battle ready prototypes in production? The Titan's brows rose behind his uncut bangs. There are already prototypes, but each one is individual. Hmm? There are already prototypes, but each one is individual, as are he glanced around suspiciously, wielders. So I think what he's saying that each prototype is set to suit the individual person. So like each prototype has to, is fit to be handled by a certain individual person. So you can't like mass produce to everybody. Like it has to, right now is in the phase where it has to be matched up with, or not matched up with, but it's like made to suit individual wielders, is what I'm trying to say. She used the ether form. Sylvie's spell causes her to dishes her everything just because that's what helped her along with her mana to turn her to either play it back on it. Make it make sense. She used the ether from Sylvie's. Yeah, she used the ether from Sylvie's spell, cause because Turtlemere just dishes her everything just because, and that's what helped her along with her mana to turn his ether back. Yeah. Sylvie's ether, the little bit of ether that was in her mana, that's what allowed her to do that shit in the first place. Which, well, basically what she said was her absorbing. I'm kind of speaking to strategists right now for a second. So her absorbing Sylvie's mana, which is tinged with ether, gave her insight, and that insight is what allowed her to briefly manipulate Arthur's sword and turn it back against him. And then not only did she try to turn it back against him, there was some explosion and then that mana explosion is what made the sword go through and hit his core. So she didn't even just do it herself. She didn't like just take the sword and just hit it with him. She took the sword and controlled it, and it was like slowly going back towards Arthur. Arthur couldn't move it or some shit like that. And then there was a mana explosion, and then the mana explosion is what like made the sword, reflect or bounce or whatever the fuck, and it go and it went inside and hit his core. Shit still, I mean, it makes a little sense, but the whole mana explosion thing is kind of seems to me like to be the reason why all that happened in the first place. But anyway, so there are prototypes, but each one is individual, as are the wielders. It'll take time to stabilize additional units. I felt my jaw clench and unclench as I considered my answer. I can give you 2 weeks. His eyes widened, and he gazed down through the ground as if seeing his project through the stone. Housed far below Vidorio in the deepest tunnels, where prying eyes wouldn't stumble upon it by accident. Barely enough time to find new users, much less train and design. We need as many as you can. We need as many as you can have already. I said, reaching out my hand to shake his. Instead of taking my hand, he held out something that he'd been hiding behind his side, and I jerked my own hand back as if I'd been burned, staring at the object. Sharon's people found it in the rubble. When they realized it was a Soren made, they collected the pieces. Held loosely in his grip was the handle of Dawn's ballad. Why is his sword? What the fuck? How does his sword have to do? Why has his sword been introduced all of a sudden? He's got his ether blades. Sharon's people found it in the rubble. When they realized when did we last see his blade? Because his blade ended up being melted when he fought the acid tree jumping lady, who was a retainer. But I don't remember what happened afterwards. Okay. When they realized it was a sword made, they collected the pieces. Held loosely in his grip was the handle of Dawn's ballad. About an inch of the blue blade remained, gray and jagged along its shattered edge. It wasn't the best thing I ever made, but I thought you might want it. Gingerly, I took the handle, turning it over and looking at it, overcome by the dizzying sensation of seeing a dream suddenly manifest in the real world. Then Ren held out a small box. When I took it as well, he opened the lid to reveal gray shards within. That was left, oh, gray shards within what was left of the blade. The smallest hint of a wry smile turned up the corner of his mouth. I know how sentimental you humans can be. Thank you, Ren, I said simply, staring down at Dawn's ballad, or at least what remained of it. Is he gonna try to use Aurora's Requiem to try to? But will it really work though? Because the blade was kind of fucked up. I don't know. Thank you, Ren. He shrugged and turned away. Come find us soon. There are quite a few things to discuss if you want a 2 week turnaround. By the time I pulled my gaze away from his gift to say something, he had vanished into the steady stream of traffic moving along the highway that wound around the edge of the massive cavern. My feet carried me blindly through the institute's gates and along its halls until I arrived at my mother's door. As I reached up to knock, the door eased inward to reveal my mother's hopeful face. She looked caught off guard, almost as if she'd been looking for me but hadn't expected me to really be there. I could see the weight of 1,000 words hanging on the tip of her tongue, and could practically imagine the scolding she would give me about Ellie's state when she last returned, and with only Chul, no less. But just as quickly, the tension and frustration melted away, replaced by motherly warmth and a sad sort of joy. She gave me a warm smile. Welcome home. Okay. Welcome home. The chapter still isn't over with yet, man. This is a long ass chapter, yo. But I don't know if he can repair that sword because he doesn't have all the pieces. Because remember, he can't really repair things unless he has all the pieces. So maybe he can repair it if he got the pieces like in order from the hilt going up, but like I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he could, because they said they gathered the pieces, the gray pieces, so it's not even blue anymore or teal. Is is now gray. So I don't know. I don't know what it means. But Mom snorted as Ellie recounted one of her many conversations with Gideon, and her hand covered her mouth in embarrassment. Ellie burst out laughing, then purposefully mimicked Mom's accidental snort. Mom threw a bread roll at her head, but Ellie caught it out of the air and took a big bite. Looking extremely pleased with herself, the following laughter lasted for a long time and felt like a washcloth scrubbing my spirit clean from within or from inside. So, Ellie, I've been wondering, Mom said, her sister tense, no doubt expecting some sort of ambush question. You never had a normal life, not since you were just a few years old. When your big brother saves the world and everything goes back to normal, whatever that is, really, what do you think you'll do? Become a housewife? Ellie said without missing a beat. Mom and I both blinked several times in silence as we struggled to digest this information. Boo, who couldn't fit in the kitchen, was watching Regis jealously through the door as my companion scarfed down a plate of leftovers, turned his head nearly on his side to as he gave Ellie a challenging stare. Giggled, Ellie giggled and shook her head fiercely. Oh, I'm kidding. Gosh. No, I think she hesitated, her eyes losing focus, and then a little smile curved at the corner of her mouth. I think maybe I'd like to be an instructor in men arts at Lancelot Academy, or maybe even back in Cyrus. That would kind of feel like going home, you know? We chatted for a while longer, inventing increasingly silly scenarios about what we would all like to do when the long war finally comes to an end and that Catherine was safe. Mom settled on writing a book about exploits, about my exploits, claiming she would be a rich elderly widow. As she wrote, "A widow? She ain't gonna try to get remarried?" Take up as she rode the coattails of my frame, while I assured them both I would retire, taking up potato farming and invent French fries. And yet all throughout dinner and the conversation, my thoughts lingered on Dawn's ballot, my conversation with Aladari, and the foundations of the plan that has started to form in the back of my head. 'Cause he got different, he can have multiple trains of thought, so he can like still be in the conversation. But then he can also still be thinking about his different plans and stuff. He might not be able to have like 10 different strands of thought, but maybe he can have like 2 or 3 while he's still just, hanging out with his family. So that's cool. Um, as the small talk petered out and a comfortable silence was left behind, butt dressed it, yeah, butt dressed, yeah, this is it, or buttressed it. How the fuck you say that shit? I've heard that word before. By the silence, I withdrew the remnants of the sword from my dimension rune and set them on the table. Mom and Ellie both watched curiously. Mom recognized the handle first, looking up at me with quiet surprise. I gave her a small smile as I opened the box and dumped the gray broken pieces of the blade out next to the handle. Regis lifted his head over the edge of the table. Oh, are you going to use Aurora's to repair it? You know, I've secretly been hoping this would happen. Smiling contently, I swept the blade pieces back into the box, set it on the table, and set the hammer on top of it. No. The broken blade, I realized, had been the turning point for me. Up until that battle, I had always come out on top in the end. My belief in the inevitability of victory had been as sure as if I'd seen it in a vision. All of my training, all of my quest for power to protect those I loved, it all came crashing down, shattered along with the azure blade of Dawn's ballad. Repairing the blade wouldn't undo my defeat or the long series of consequences that followed to define the world which we now lived in. I glanced from Mom to Ellie, then to the wall where a charcoal drawing of my father hung. My mother's eyes followed mine, and her hand reached out to settle on my arm. Ellie let out a world-weary sigh that sounded much too old for her. I can't wait for this stupid war to be over, to rebuild our homes, to live peacefully, where our biggest worry is what clothes to wear on a date. I raised one brow, regarding her seriously, despite the fact that I'd rather wrestle 20 wraiths with my arms tied behind my back then watch you get ready for a date. I promise, I will do everything I can to make that future happen. I'm going to need your help again to do it, and it's going to be dangerous. Okay, it's going to be dangerous. That man doesn't need a new sword, though he can make his ether creations just like Ellie can make her man. Okay, this is a long ass chapter. This chapter felt really long to me. As far as a whole lot happening, I mean, we basically just got Arthur a whole lot of the whole questioning with Aladari didn't really come up with a whole lot from the whole questioning stuff. So that was like, not a whole lot came from that. We found out more about with King's Gambit. So we know that King's Gambit has limitations with the whole itch bullshit, which I don't know, man. I understand that there's going to be limitations to things and you want to kind of nerf some stuff to have it not be overpowered, right? You nerf um the destruction room because that's just way too crazy. But then you nerf King's Gambit. But you got things like Godstep. Godstep isn't nerfed. I mean, I guess you consider the nerf was that he needed to go and do a whole training montage with 4 steps in order for him to learn how to use it better. I guess you consider that like a little bit of a nerf, but I wouldn't call that really a nerf. Um, because he can do even more crazy ass things with Godstep. We still don't know the full capability that he can use Realm Heart. We don't know any sort of nerf from Realm Heart other than like he needs to learn how to fully utilize the ability properly. But he already took steps to that, and maybe King's Gambit is going to give him even more steps. Um, I just think that the nerf that he made for King's Gambit is kind of cheap. That's all I'm trying to say. I just think the nerf is a little cheap. Like it's just like, okay, the nerf is that if he uses it and makes too many strands of thoughts, his itch is going to get more and more and more powerful, and it's going to distract him too much to the point where he can't keep those strands of thoughts going for very long because it'll just overwhelm him, and he'll have to eventually stop making strands of thoughts and just stop using the spell entirely. So the whole itch just don't make sense because if you heal your core, and we know that either can heal completely, why would there be an itch? Why would there be a faint scar? Why would there be anything? So I don't know, but this is cool though. This is a cool chapter, and I think that the way I'm gonna think of this is just I'm kind of just seeing what happens next. What other plans is he gonna have with Gideon and Ren with their whole, prototypes that he got. What is he gonna do with the Morning Pearls? Is he gonna see what is it called? What's his name? Eclia or whatever? Is he gonna see him again to maybe get some more questions out of him? Is he gonna meet with Kez's again? Because I think that he ended up leaving early doing the whole insight walk bullshit. Um, what Agrona's plans are, because Agrona's ramping up his plans. So I guess we just gotta wait and see. We gotta just wait and see. But this is a cool chapter. It was a long chapter. It felt really long reading it, but this is a cool chapter. But now we got the football game that's gonna be coming on today. Got the Browns versus the Texans, and I'm gonna watch that. So I'm gonna get off here in a bit. But yeah, I guess just let me know what you guys thought about the chapter. Anything else you guys think? Because I don't know. I don't really have any theories as far as like what I think is going to happen. I mean, I think that Agrona is going to execute his plan. I mean, I don't think that I don't think that Arthur's going to go and go into the fourth keystone like soon. I think he's going to wait a bit to get some more preparations all lined up before he does that. And we need to see Arthur use King's Gambit more to try to like get some more plans and some more things all filled out, so that way we kind of can see some of the limitations on what he can actually do and what he can't do, because it seems like he can his senses even got elevated using King's Gambit. He can fucking smell shit, sense shit, hear shit. He can control his parts of his brain that controls his subconscious. that controls like his facial expressions and his heart rate, like all types of crazy ass shit. So so yeah, King's Gambit is pretty useful. You know, if you like interrogating somebody trying to find out the truth, you know. So there's a lot of things that you can do with King's Gambit that's gonna help him out. But yeah. But that's it for me, man. This is a cool chapter. I'll give this chapter probably about 8.5. I give this probably like 8.5 out of 10. It was cool. It was cool. And we'll see what happens next chapter. But I appreciate the like share I gave for the video. Gave a lot of likes, so that's cool. I appreciate that shit. And like I said, I typically try to get a video posted Saturdays. So I'm kind of like Saturday is kind of like my most frequent time when I make videos. So if you're looking for when I'm gonna do a live, most of the time it's gonna be on Saturday. I know some of you might have the alert where the bell already clicked to where you get alerted whenever I go live. So that makes it a whole lot easier. But yeah. But I'll check you guys out in the next video. Appreciate y'all joining in on the live. Peace.